Well, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to our second NCL Coaches Call. I'm Dan Manson, NCL Commissioner, and I'm very pleased to have joined us on the call today Kaitlyn Bestenheider, who is the NCL Chief Player Ambassador.
Hi,
and
guys.
Kaitlyn's been a guest on NCL Thursday Night Live. She's worn all the hats of NCL, from player at a community college to player at a graduate program to coaching teams at college level and coaching teams at the high school level. So I think from a player and coach standpoint, Kaitlyn is the best resource you could have on today.
I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done everything wrong that you could possibly do wrong.
And that's how you learn.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with a question, because in spring season, we really would like to have more high schools play NCL. And you have some experience now working with the high school students. Is there anything that someone who's a teacher at a high school level or is working with a high school should look for, their lessons learned for having a high school play NCL that you can share?
I guess the first thing that I learned was not to underestimate them. Originally, I had planned for last season to be just get used to the environment, be brave, put yourself out there, try the competition. I expected them to only compete in open source information, cryptography, and if they found something else, great for them. My kids ended up being really into it. I made a certain block of time every week dedicated to practicing NCL with sample challenges and things like that. And they were able, I had students who did things in, I think, 7 of 9 categories. So just don't underestimate them and their ambition to compete and learn. If you give them the opportunity, they're going to shine. Just make sure they understand that they are competing against college students. They're competing against, 2-year schools, 4-year schools, graduate students. They're competing against people who have been on computers hacking since they were 10 years old. It's okay not to be number one. What's important to make sure the high schoolers understand is that this is a resume builder. If you put that you competed in a hackathon on your resume and you're going for any form of cybersecurity or IT job, the question is going to come up in their interview that oh, what's the National Cyber League? Or how has the National Cyber League helped you prepare for this job or anything like that? And having the right answer to those questions is really important. So what we do at our school is we're going to set up a mock interview where my students are going to watch another teacher interview me, and I'm going to show them how I incorporate NCL into my interview.
Are your students that play fall going to be playing spring?
Yes, and they're actually coaching. We have 2 years of cyber technologies at the school that I teach. Year 1 teaches for CompTIA A+, which is hardware, and year 2 teaches for the Security Plus. My Security Plus students are actually coaching the year 1 students so that they can get exposed to both what year 2 is going to be like as well as the competition. They are preparing them for open source intel, password cracking, log analysis, cryptography, and scanning.
Do they have favorite challenges?
What I love about my team is relatively small. I only had 5 students in my class this year because it's the first year the program has run. Every single one of them had a different specialty or ability that they just understood better than anyone else. Of course, I was really excited. The first one that I noticed was really into crypto, which kind of near and dear to my heart. I've got another kid who blows us away in Excel, and I teach them to use Excel for log analysis because it's just a little more accessible at the high school level, and they're still understanding and managing. Sorry, I tried to combine that. The data And then another student just surprised me that he's just fantastic at like Nmap or like WP scan and all of the like automated scanning tools. He just figures out I'm sitting there struggling with some of these things and he just figures it out. It's cool, fine. I'm not jealous or upset or anything.
I can't help asking this question. Were there any concerns at the high school administration level or other levels about students learning these tools?
I think I had more concerns than my administration as like a first year teacher. I was concerned because like, oh God, if they do something wrong, it's like my fault. I don't think that if you're willing to teach them like general cybersecurity skills, you shouldn't be afraid to teach them about like the hacking and stuff like that. It really comes down to ethics, and I talk about ethics nearly every day in class. When something comes up in the news, we talk about it. Just making sure they understand the difference between right and wrong. And like I jokingly like tell them like, oh, I'm a white hat hacker, but also like I will like threaten to make like a paper hat and make them wear it if they like, and it's a joke, but like you have to just make sure that they understand the difference between right and wrong. I mean, kids can go home and there's guns in houses, there's baseball bats, like you don't even need to be a certain age to buy a baseball bat. Like just because you're putting something that could potentially be a weapon in somebody's hands, like you have to trust that athletes aren't going to go tackle somebody in the street from playing football or beat somebody with a baseball bat. It's the same thing. Like if you help them understand the consequences, they're going to make the right choice.
Waiting for the next question, but while we're waiting, I'll ask this. I'm presenting this Friday to a high school on NCL, and then I go to a community college to present on NCL. And what we did at our school with Cyber Patriot is we had some of our college students become mentors, technical mentors for the high school students. Is there potential that we could create that kind of role, technical mentors for kids in high school?
Well, at PACE right now, I'm in a really unique position because last semester I coached my team, and everybody that was on the postseason team is coming back this season, and this is for me like the most like returning players I've had. I'm still coaching this upcoming semester, but I'm going to sort of like delegate experts more than just like, oh, let me help you. Let me actually get somebody who I know is really good to help you. Because it's going to build the confidence of that's, tenured player. It's going to reinforce the skills. Having to explain something to someone else is the best way to make sure that you have mastery of it. And also like nobody wants to hear the same person talk forever. So.
Cool. We do have a question now. This is from Gerald. Does a list exist of prerequisite technique and process knowledge to be successful in NCL, such as what tools to know?
So I'm building a workshop for the Women in Cybersecurity Conference in Chicago in March. And it's called NoobSec to Cyber Champion, Hacking the National Cyber League for Success. And kind of the point of my workshop is that even if you don't know how to turn on the computer, you should compete in some form of competition, because it's a lot easier to build skills when you're doing it hands-on than it is to just like read about it in a textbook. But also NCL is kind of developed in this really unique way that they're broken down by very specific learning objectives. And then they're also broken down by easy, medium, and hard, and they're labeled. So if you're working on the easy challenges and you're struggling, you know that these are pretty accessible. Just keep working at it and you'll figure it out. Keep Googling things, keep looking things up, keep researching. You're going to figure out those easy challenges eventually. Like if you put in the time, the effort, you will figure that out. Like none of us are that incompetent. My first season, I didn't know how to log into my computer at school because I didn't know that Control-Alt-Delete wasn't one button, it's 3. Who would have thought? But it wasn't me that figured that out. So I literally didn't know anything. I was a former theater major. I was an event manager. I had went back to school looking for something more challenging because I was bored. And I was like, oh, sure, I'll sign up for this thing. It's free. My school's sponsoring me. So like, I'll give it a try. I was kind of voluntold by Professor John Watkins at WCC that I was going to do it. And I was like, sure, why not? I didn't know anything. I opened the competition and I was like, oh, great. I am in the wrong field. I'm too stupid to be in this field. I'll never be successful. But then I just kind of started. Like I wasn't going to let it beat me. And open source Intel is actually designed for you to Google all of the answers. Even though there's some challenges that aren't necessarily very straightforward, like Google this question, you'll get this answer. It's just meant to like generally Google and you'll figure it out. So like an example of an open source Intel question is like, what language was the I love you virus written in? And I happen to know it's VB script because that question has come up in a couple of NCL seasons. But like most people wouldn't know that off the top of your head. So you just punch it into Google and you get started. And that's really where I started. My first season, I answered a total of 12 questions, all in open source Intel. And then if you know some basic numeric and historical cryptography, which there's a huge thing about on my blog, cryptocrate.wordpress.com, you'll do great in crypto. Crypto is not that hard either. And then you just keep plucking through the different skill sets and find out what you're good at. The first time I showed one of my friends NCL, they were really great at web access exploitation. And I was like, I've never solved a single question in that challenge. That's cool. So everybody has different skills that they're good at, and you just keep plucking away at what you're good at, and you take one challenge that you're terrified of and try to solve that too. The goal shouldn't really be to be perfect at NCL or to catch every flag or to capture every flag or finish every challenge. It should be kind of to use it as a metric for yourself. Like, these are the 9 skills that they test me in. This is what I'm able to do now. So between this season and next, I'm going to study up on one thing that I was really good at and one thing that I was really bad at. And then you just want to keep showing growth. You want to keep getting better at those skills. In March, it's like the week before the competition starts, I'm doing my workshop at WISIS, and then I will be posting my guide. So it will show kind of like an introduction of like each type of challenge so that you can see what is going to be coming.
Are there challenges where you do want to start using tools and get familiar with tools such as Wireshark, or are there password cracking tools? In some cases, are there challenges tied to using a tool?
There's always challenges tied with using a tool. One of my favorite challenges is that it's a log analysis challenge, and it has like a .sqlite file. And I'm like, I didn't even know that could be a file extension. That's cool. Excuse me while I go Google it. And you look up how to open .sqlite files, and the first tool listed is like DB-SQLite browser. So you download and install it, and you try it, and you click through, and like, it's one of those things you just keep, it's like Finding Dory's is just keep swimming with new utilities that you've never used. Just keep clicking. You'll eventually find something that's really useful. And I think like if you find the right series of clicks in that tool, all of the answers are all on one page. Like, it's really simple. So not being afraid to try new things during the competition, which is why I recommend competing from a virtual environment, so you can install 60 different tools while you're trying things out and see what works for you. Everyone's going to have a different tool that works best for them.
That's a great point about using a virtual environment, because no matter how much you mess it up, it's not your computer. It's something that you can wipe and reuse, reinstall, whatever you want to do with virtual.
It also can save you a lot of headache, because you can just kind of go back. I had a friend last season who blue screened in the middle of NCL, and thankfully, like, my partner and I are both in technology, so we have a lot of extra computers. She was able to come home and come over to my house and use one of my extra PCs to compete, because her computer completely crashed during the competition through no fault of anything in NCL. It's just she was installing different utilities and her computer blue screened.
We have a question about institutional support, or working with an institution. So you've had the opportunity to work with Westchester Community College, with PACE, at the graduate level and the high school. What advice do you have about working with an institution at different levels?
From the student perspective, if you go to the people in charge and say, this is what I want to do and why, you know, I'm going to do it anyway. I would love if you could support me or help me find other people who might be interested in doing this with me and helping us just find a space to be in the same room. That's really all you need as a student. As an institution or as a professor or a teacher or anything like that, the best thing you can do is just let them know that it's supposed to be hard and try to, during the competition, compete alongside of them. I don't think professors or instructors or coaches get ranked, but one of the things I found really effective with my high school kids is that I would wait for someone to beat my score and then I'd capture another flag. So they thought they were really, really close to me for the first like 9 hours of the competition, and they pushed themselves so hard. And then I waited until I had just like a few hours left, and I went in and I put in all the flags I had figured out and just had written down on paper, because up until that point they were competing so hard with the possibility to like beat me, and it really encouraged them, and I think it made a big difference on my high school kid.
I'm glad you say it encouraged them rather than depressed them.
Well, I would stay only like less than 100 points ahead of them. Like I was very cautious with my points.
We have a question from Cheyenne. What should we do to run an NCL session in a classroom setting? How long is a session? 30 minutes? Do I, as a faculty, sign up for them? Do I send students to sign up NCL individually?
I think this might be a question from like the way the gym used to be set up before Cyber Skyline took over the gym. Mm-hmm. And I never figured out that gym system. Pretty much after season 1, I gave up on that gym system, to be honest. But with Cyber Skyline, as soon as the gymnasium opens, it's just open access, and you can work on it for 5 minutes. You can work on it for 5 hours, and it's not going to really change. I try to not think about it in terms of time, but I look at it in terms of like a challenge set. So it's broken down by like competency, and then there's challenges, and then there's questions within a challenge. I try to do things one challenge at a time, and I try to do within the same competency. I start with the easy and build my way up with that. So I try to do the same competency near each other.
I think it's a great point that we're no longer using labs. So it's not, you're having a lab with a fixed amount of time. It's more like you're going into a true gymnasium and you're choosing what exercise you want to do, or maybe going into a place where you have all these choices on workout machines, and you pick which workout you want to do and how you choose how many reps you want to do or how much time you want to do. It's much more of a user-based experience in terms of the time you spend.
Right now at Pace, I think I have 2 days a week, 2 hours each practice. And what I like to do is I have collected a lot of practice challenges over the years. So I will let people pick whatever they want to work on and let them work on it. And when they get stuck, as a coach, I never answer anyone's question. I try to ask them questions to help them figure out what they need to research to get better. So like if they're stuck in password cracking and they have all the hashes, but they can't figure out what hash type it is, we'll look up different hash types and how to identify them. And then they'll do that, and then they'll come back. Well, it could be one of these. All right, next, how do we test that? And just keep asking them questions to help guide their next step. So I like to let everybody work individually on whatever they want to. So you might have, a couple of students working on crypto, and then another bunch of students working on log analysis. It really doesn't matter. There's no one path. I think that's the most important thing to understand. There's no one right way to do this. Other competitions, like everything has to build on each other chronologically. With NCL, like just go for what you're good at. Go for what you're not good at too. Like don't be afraid to be bad at something 1,000,010 times and then suddenly, oh, I figured it out. I'm a little bit better. I'm not afraid to admit that I still can't get a perfect score in NCL. And I'm giving a workshop on it. So like, you guys are gonna have to give me some answers. Like, I feel like I've earned the no.
Gerald wants to know, this is related to what you just said. Students need a number of tools and resources, but the way I'm looking at it, there are tools that you can use, but unless you go through the learning curve of understanding each individual challenge and what that is looking for, you kind of have to go through the process on your own to get to the point where you understand the value of the tool, rather than assuming the tool is going to give you the answer.
There's actually a post on my blog that I've been trying to decide whether or not to take down. It's not that I don't think it's effective. It's just that it's what's effective for me. And it's what I have worked with and figured out over the years. Like, I'm not super strong in Linux command line, so I'm not going to try to do log analysis in Linux command line. You know what I'm good at? I'm really good at Excel. So I'm going to pop all that data into Excel and filter that data and get you the answers that way with stuff that like count for me. And so I'm not, But then I've had students who were like, oh, you just put in this like one command into Linux. I'm like, okay, smarty, go over there in the corner. I struggled through this for like 2 years now. I'm glad you could figure that out on your own in 10 minutes. Everybody's going to have a different path. And sometimes like, as somebody who transitioned from a student to a coach, sometimes other people's paths, like, they hurt. They stab you right in the soul, because you're like, that's cool. I almost cried during that challenge the first time I saw it, but you did it in 10 minutes. That's fine. Go have fun over there. I'm going to go pout. We'll be good.
Some people get lucky.
Well, it's not lucky. Some people just have different experiences. Like, some people have different knowledge bases. Some people, like, there's also different types of learners. Like, some people are really, really good at hardware. And like, I literally almost didn't make this call because the hardware in my office changed. And I was like, I don't know how to plug things in. But I'm really good at security because it's more like conceptual and like, you know, not spatial and like building, but like, it's just like things you have to kind of use your imagination for. And I'm better at that. So like, you know, somebody who's got a different type of mind and a different way of thinking is going to see things differently.
We have a question about giving a demo of what a NCL session looks like. So that might be an interesting Thursday Night Live call, or maybe we could try it on a future coaches call where we take you into the gym.
That's also one of the steps that I'm including in my workshop, because like, I think that's a little bit confusing. So I know that sometimes students will log in and they'll only do like the first challenge of each competency because they don't know how to change challenges, or people don't know how to change competencies without going all the way back to the like competition homepage. So there's a lot of little challenges of just like learning the navigation. And I was gonna make a YouTube video this season so that you guys would have it for future use, but doing that in advance and having it for everybody is a really great idea.
So you made an excellent point. I've seen this on your Twitter. There is no one path. There is no right path to go down this road. Everyone kind of has their own path, and they all work.
Yeah.
It's not a case where if you have a certain background, that is the right background to have. You know, you kind of develop a passion and you follow your passion.
Yeah, the first season that I was any good, I only really cared about open source and crypto. Everything else was like extra, but like the only things I wanted to work on were open source and crypto. And I got really good in those two categories. And don't get me wrong, getting 100% in two competencies is going to be a decent score. Because the hard challenges are worth a lot. But, and then like my next thing was password cracking. Like, that's really random, but I saw the hashes as an encryption, and encryption was cryptography. And for me, the skills like connected and made sense. Nobody else I've ever taught sees the connection between the two, but that's fine. Like, that's what I saw, and that's how I did it. I have friends who are crazy good at Wireshark, and like, that was their introduction into it. And I'm like, well, you're a super genius. That's cool. And then, like I said, some people are really good at just like the coding challenges, the ones that are very based heavily on like knowing and understanding code logic. And like, again, like there's things that are going to make you frustrated, and like that's okay. Like the more frustrated you are and the more you keep going, the more you're going to learn. Somebody's asking about middle school students a couple of times, and I don't know what the official answer is, but I know that like you guys are just starting to open it up to high schoolers. Originally this was like solely collegiate, so I don't know what the middle school status is.
I think that eventually we will get to the middle school level. You know, it's more a question of when, because I've been involved in Cyber Patriot for 10 years. And when we started the middle school pilot, I didn't know if middle school kids could play the game, or, you know, what it would be like for them. Would they enjoy the competition aspect? And now there's 1,000 middle school teams playing Cyber Patriot. So I actually do have confidence that middle school kids could play NCL, but I think the first thing we want to do is get used to high school students.
And don't underestimate kids in any way. As an instructor, this summer I got to work on I developed oh, my brain is breaking. I'm sorry, guys. I had a snow day today, so like I'm kind of just waking up. I developed this scavenger hunt for the Pace University Gen Cyber program over the summer. This scavenger hunt's designed for high schoolers, and a little 3-year-old found like mistakes and alternate answers to my puzzles. And I was like, you are 3, be my best friend. Teach me your ways, sensei. So this little girl was 3 and she had the cutest little pigtails, and like me and my best friend were like dying, and she's just like telling us all the ways that like she outsmarted our stuff. That's fine, you know.
So one of the things I found out when we started seeing the middle school kids play, sometimes they have less fear, certainly than college students I know. And to be able to expose someone early before they think, oh, Linux is too hard, or, you know, something is too hard for me, they don't know better. So I do like the idea of starting them as young as we can.
But I can say, as someone who thought like everything was too hard for me, like you can come around, guys. It's okay. I legitimately, I'm not even joking when I say I cried after my first NCL. I did NCL preseason, fall 2015, and I legitimately went home and I cried and said I was too dumb to be in this field. I'm too stupid. We're wasting so much money for me to go back to school. Like, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. And I went to my professor to drop out of school. And he was just like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you solved a Visionaire cipher without the key just because you happen to know how they worked and you happen to know enough human psychology to guess the password. And he was like, you solved it before I finished explaining it. And you're going to tell me you're too dumb to be in this field? I'm not accepting that. He's like, what are you struggling in specifically? What makes you think that you're too dumb? And I was like, well, I can't do this and this and this. And honestly, it took until that conversation for someone to tell me Control-Alt-Delete was 3 buttons. So as somebody who was genuinely too dumb to be in this field during my first competition, like, you can learn this stuff and nothing should be too scary. And I can't say it enough. I really think that everyone should just go for it and leap fearlessly for once. Like, take this one opportunity to be brave and be bold, and it's going to have a big impact.
Well, what is the downside of playing in NCL or playing in a competition? I don't know of a downside. I know of a downside of taking a class and getting a bad grade and having that grade affect your GPA, but I don't know of a downside other than, you know, maybe some embarrassment. If you do bad,
you can hide your scores. You don't have to show those scores. Do better next season and put those scores on your resume. Or do what I did, and I put my really, really bad scores, and then a semester later, my really, really good scores on the same resume, and I was like, I did that in 6 months.
Mm-hmm. So as a coach, what are the qualities that make a good coach?
Well, my kids like that I'm really interesting. Like, I'm kind of all over the place. You can't tell. But I just have a really big personality, and I'm really passionate about cybersecurity. So like, as soon as they want to talk about any subject, even if it's not crypto, like, I'm really excited to talk about it with them. And even when they ask questions that I don't know the answer to, I'm like, oh, let me, like, I'm honest. I say, like, look, I don't know, but like, let's look this up together. Let's figure it out together. And my kids solved challenges from like previous NCLs that I never figured out. And I was like, that's cool. I didn't get points for that. I'm glad it was so easy. So just like being honest with them, like if you don't know, that's okay. Like they don't expect you to be perfect. And if they do, like they're going to be sadly mistaken when they go out in the real world. So like be honest with them now and show them that like there's ways to figure things out when you don't know the answer. You know, what would you do at work if you didn't know the answer? Are you going to go run to your manager and say like, oh, sorry, I don't know? Or are you going to like try to Google it first and be like low key, like, I don't know this, but I'm going to figure it out.
I've heard from a couple of faculty, I've heard this secondhand as well, that some faculty don't want to get involved with coaching because it's going to take too much time, that they don't want to commit 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours a week to being a coach. But isn't that a choice that you make as to how much you want to have them go through the learning process and how much you want to teach them?
I can say that my high schoolers, okay, the year one high schoolers are going to have 4 class days. So 4 2.5-hour sessions, which is like 10 hours. Really bad at math. I shouldn't be in this field with how bad I am at math. Like 10 hours total, are going to be prepared to compete in like 6 competency areas. Like, I think that's totally worth it. If you can't dedicate 10 hours and you only have 5, then find 5 hours worth of material that you know your kids can master in that time, and then give them the resources to learn by themselves. Like, you're not supposed to be teaching them how to do everything. You're supposed to be teaching them how to teach themselves. And I'm like really adamant about that because NCL changes up the challenges. Like you can have like this grand master plan of like, I've competed since fall 2015, every single season. And like every single season I think, oh, I've mastered the list of like, know how to do these challenges and you'll be okay. And then they throw a monkey wrench into it and that's cool. I don't know how to do this entire section now. Great. Thanks guys. So it's not about teaching them like, this is the steps to, it's not geometry. You can't say if you know these 4 formulas, then you can solve any equation with them. That's not how it works. If you know how to teach yourself how to problem solve when you don't know the answer, that's the skill that you're teaching. So figure out how long that's going to take you. And if you only have 2 hours to give them 1 class, then just do it. Show them the open source, show them some crypto, and tell them to go to town on the rest. They'll figure it out. Like, I think the worst thing you do as a coach is underestimate your players.
I think that as a player, this is very difficult. And as a coach, it's difficult to have the player accept this. There are challenges that will take a long time to solve. What's the longest amount of time you spent solving a challenge?
4 days during preseason. Like,
and how do you,
like 4 days, like sleeping at my computer, waiting for little alarms to go off that like something had cracked. Like I've sat in my office and screamed at my computer. I accidentally threw a wireless keyboard out the window once during a competition. I didn't know the window was open. I did throw it intentionally, but I didn't know the window was open. I had to go retrieve it from, 2 floors down on the front lawn. So like it is frustrating and it's supposed to be.
How do you keep from giving up? But more importantly, as a coach, how do you keep your players from giving up?
Well, as a coach, I'm super hands-on. I come from a theater background, and I was a stage manager and director. So one of the things you learn is that like as a director and a stage manager, you really have to care about your actors. You have to make sure that everybody's like emotionally okay, because if they're not, then like they go on stage and like, they're not like the character, they're like some variation of themselves as the characters, and it can get really scary. So I kind of do like a check-in at certain points throughout the competition. I set it up as like, oh, I'm reminding you that you have X amount of time left, but I'll check on them and be like, oh, did you check out this one challenge that I happen to know you've been trying to work on really, really hard and I know you struggle with? And they'll be like, yeah, I'm stuck in this one thing and it's so frustrating. I'm like, yeah, no, it's super tough. Let me know let me know if you get it. I have total faith in you that you can. So just that like emotional check-in that I know is really hard to do when you have a lot of students. But I've done it when I was at WCC. We once had a team of 37 people, and I checked in on every single one of them throughout the entire competition, because knowing that somebody cares about how you feel during a competition like this, especially if it's your first time, can have a big difference and just make you feel like a little more secure when you're feeling really insecure because you don't know this stuff.
We have a good question. The question might be basic, but I really like this question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between regular and post? Because it's very important to know that if you're playing in the regular season, you're playing as an individual. If you're playing in postseason, you're playing as part of a team, but you're not sharing across teams.
Yeah.
Do you
So
suggest
I'm really good at this question, and I answer it like 1,000 times. There's 3 parts to the NCL season. There is preseason, which is an individual competition designed to assess your skills and see what bracket you should be placed in so that you're competing against people at the same skill level as you. Because it's okay if you don't do great overall, but if you do great in the Bronze League, that's great. Good job, and that's really important. Regular season is where you compete within those brackets. Preseason is totally required for regular season. Regular season is also an individual competition where this is for all the glory. This is the big one. This is the one where your scouting report goes on your resume. This is the one that you want to make sure you do your best and put all of your time and effort into. Make sure that's the one you do the most like check-ins for your student on like how they're doing emotionally, as I just said. And then postseason is an optional, really great add-on to the end of the season. It's where you can put people on teams so people can share their skills. So if one person's good at crypto, one person's good at cracking password cracking, you can put them in the same room and they can help teach each other the skills. So it's not about like getting as many flags as possible. It's about, you know, peer mentorship and team building. What I like the most about postseason is that I have a friend who competed with me in the very, very beginning. And he and I did every season together, but we were very different minded people. So between us, we always knew how to do just about everything. And what grew both of our skills was that every season we would teach each other something during that postseason. And like, we were both like really fierce competitors. And like, I think we were both in the Gold League together. Like, it was really awesome to just have that support system. And as Dan Mesa mentioned, like, you can share among teams, but not among schools. So if your school has 2 to 3 teams, all of those teams are competing against each other and shouldn't share flags. And preseason and regular season, you know, you shouldn't share flags with anybody. Like, yeah, you can talk about the challenges in a very general way. Like, oh, did you see the RSA encryption challenge? Yeah. Oh my God, it's driving me crazy. I can't figure out how to decrypt it. Yeah, me either. But like, if you did figure it out, no, I totally know you can do it. Just keep at it. But never talking about like the specifics of how to, which is really hard to teach people how to do. I've definitely had students who have said like a little too much, and I'm like, thank God I already solved that challenge, or I won't be able to put in that flag because you said too much. It's really important that you understand this. But I think postseason is like so important for like building a community around this. Having like your little tribe of NCL people, it's really empowering when they're struggling in the competition, and it's always a struggle. Postseason, you have to have competed in regular season to participate in. So in order to get to post, you have to do preseason, regular season, and then post. And post should be like the grand prize for having done all your stuff. I know someone earlier mentioned like, we'll give you your money back if you compete, but like more importantly, you can't go to team if you don't compete in everything else.
Right. And the second part of this, how is NCL run in the classroom if students are sent to sign up for NCL individually? Well, we do this all the time as teachers. We expect our students to buy the materials for the class on their own. So it's not that different of an analogy. If you want your students to sign up themselves, they go to the bookstore and have to get the book for the class. But you have options as a coach as to how you register. And we have flexibility on how we will help you register. But you need to contact us and let us know during the registration period what your question is, and then we can help you.
Someone asked if you missed preseason, then you need to wait for the next preseason. If you miss preseason, I think what happens, correct me if I'm wrong, you get put in what's called the pewter bracket. It basically means you don't get a scouting report. You can't rank nationally. It kind of like takes away like all the rewards for competing. But you still get the opportunity to compete. Like you still get the opportunity to learn and grow. I don't know what the rules are for postseason.
Yeah, you're right. You really do want to play preseason. I can't think of any reason not to.
It also
We have a lot of time.
So much.
We give you a lot of time to do preseason. You can choose how much time you want to play preseason. You could play preseason for a couple of hours and leave it at that, and then settle for whatever bracket you're going to be put into. But preseason, there's a very good reason to do, because it helps assess what you are and you play against your level for the regular season, and you get the scouting report with the regular season. So you really do want to play preseason.
There's also a question that comes up for my students every season about preseason. They're like, oh, if preseason puts me in a bracket with people at my skill level, shouldn't I like sandbag my scores in preseason and do really, really bad so that I get put in the bronze bracket? And my answer to that is, look, there's so many people doing that. Bronze is a hard bracket to like win. You have a better chance of winning silver than you have of winning bronze, because there's people in the bronze bracket who belong in the gold bracket who just ran out of time. Like, don't sandbag. Just do what you're supposed to do, and you'll compete against the right people, and you'll score where you're supposed to score.
Is there a team size limit? That's a good question, because we have changed it for spring. So the team size for spring is 2 to 5. If you have more than 5 players, you're going to have more than one team. It's $10 per person in postseason, but team size is 2 to 5.
I'm going to be honest, I'm like mad nervous about that, because all of the teams that I've competed on have always been like 6 to 7 people. So I'm trying to like think of like who's going to be on my team this season and like who's going to be on a different team. And I'm like, oh, cuts. I don't want to make cuts.
Yeah, there's more work now to form the team.
Yeah. It also takes more planning, because there's 9 competencies, and usually like it's really easy to pick out 9 people who are good at 9 different things, but now you have to pick out 5 people to cover 9 competencies. So it's a little more like nerve-wracking. But it
This
also
has been a great concept.
Like 2 players of like 2, you just have to have 2 people to compete on team, which in the past I think it was 5 to 10. So if you had like 4 people, you had to like team up with another like team that was too small or something. I think it was a little bizarre. So I think having the option that just like 2 people from the same school can go to team together, if they're just like friends in the same classes who just want to do this, like no teachers involved. And like, I know a lot of people in this call are coaches, so they're here because they want to be coaches, or they want to study. But another thing to know is that like students can do this totally without their instructors. I would do it in a heartbeat. If my school didn't support me, I would do it without them, and no questions asked.
Right, you can have anyone be your point of contact. I mean, there are times where I, as the commissioner, have filled that role as the point of contact. So yeah, you're not locked into having this as part of a class. There are reasons to have it as part of a class. I think it's a great extension of a traditional classroom experience. But if you don't have it as a class, you can definitely still play.
I know PACE doesn't do it as part of a class. This is an extra thing. Like I said, we just meet twice a week during like our students' off hours, and we like hang out and eat like chips and soda and like, get some stuff done. Like we all work at our own pace. We all help each other. I've had other people on my team teach me things at PACE. So it's really cool to do it that way too. There's no pressure. There's no like, oh, this is going to affect my grade. Like, for my high school kids, it's either pass or fail. They either participate to what I think is the best of their ability, or they don't participate. But it's not a range thing. You did or you did not, true or false. So I think not having it as a grade takes off a lot of the pressure.
We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes. So if you have any last questions, please enter them in the chat room.
If you have questions too, you can also hit me up on Twitter. Like I use my Twitter mostly to talk about NCL right now. It's kind of ridiculous, but I'm Crypto Kate. It's right there on my username. a really good way to reach me. And I'm always happy to talk to you or to your students about the experience. Like, if you don't really know how to like sell it to them, I'm happy to help you. Oh, hi, puppy.
So I would like to mention off topic, Chinese New Year is here, and it is the year of the dog, which I think Kate and I are very happy about.
Privacy Pupper is currently banned in the other room because the last time I tried to have her on a phone call, she peed on the bed that's next to me. So I didn't want.
But the dog actually does. The dog does help you during the competition, right?
Yeah, no, she actually spends the entire competition laying across my lap. And she's in training to be an emotional support dog. So when I'm like, you know, ready to like bang my keyboard out, she'll sit up in my lap and start licking my face and be like, chill out, mom, be cool, be cool.
It's nice to have something to help relieve the stress.
We actually have shared business cards. I know this is super cheesy, but it says Crypto Kate and Privacy Pupper. We're both on Twitter together. But let's be honest, her tweets are way cuter.
Does she have more followers?
She did at one point, and I was really mad. And then I like didn't tweet as her as much because I was like, this isn't fair. I work really hard, guys. Also,
right,
I
want to thank you for
Pace University. I have scholarships through them through like the Pace Cyber Corps and the Women in Technology General Electric Grant. They make this opportunity really possible for me because like they are paying for my entire tuition right now so that I don't have to take on like 5 side jobs, and I can really focus on like my academics and focus on being the best coach I can be, focus on my workshop, focus on these academic endeavors that I'm really proud of. And like, because I'm not working 70 hours a week to afford school, like I can be here right now. So
on behalf of NCL, we also really appreciate Pace University and all the support that they've given you and your students in NCL. Thank you, everyone, for being on the call today, and we look forward to the next call on February 21st. So we'll say goodbye for now. Thank you.